Wagyu Culture, Wagyu Fate. It's me, Del Singh from Late Night Banter. Thank you very much for watching Late Night Banter, and don't forget you can catch up with everything, including previous shows from season 1 and now season 2 at www.latenightbanter.com. Listen, today I just want to talk about turbans and gears and top knots, or jewellery as we call them, because I had a guy question my Sikhi, calling me a fake Sikh because he said, you know, you cut and trim your beard, why don't you actually leave it hanging loose? By the way, I'm a Dali, so I think that's what he does. Let me just put the record straight. First things first, I don't trim my beard, never have done, never shaved it. It is pinned up here, in fact. If I were to loosen that, it would come down. Yes, I gel it down a bit, so it kind of is a bit manageable for me. I'm sure he doesn't improve of that either, but hey, that's me just being vain, I guess. But, you know, I guess I can't be the true Sikh that you are, although, funny enough, I actually saw your Facebook profile, and you look like you spent the last 30 years with cut hair and a shaved face, and you've only just discovered Geersi Sikh with a dastard and a beard in the last 2 years. So, you know, I'm pleased you've discovered Sikhi quite a late stage, but please don't judge people like me, because guess what? I discovered Sikhi about 55 years ago, and I've actually had my gears since then, yeah? And I've actually been through what a lot of people have, is to some extent the prejudice and the trauma that came back in those 60s and 70s, that's the years of the 60s and 70s, actually having long hair, gears, and looking different from everyone else. Yeah, all the hassle. Yeah, as a kid, I had a top knot, or juda, as we call it. And, you know, my hair was long, it was down about here. So by the time it was plaited, and it was actually knotted and put together, it was on my head. It was about the size of a grapefruit. My top knot was the size of a grapefruit, it was huge. So not only did I have a fairly decent sized head, I had a second head on top, which looked a bit strange. And then, if that didn't make you stand out enough, what your mum would do is get a white handkerchief, put that on top, and elastic band around it. So now you had something that looked a bit like a softball stuck on the top of your head, and you were walking around bouncing a ball in your head. So, you know, if kids were going to take the rise, they certainly were going to now. So if only somebody had invented this, a bandana, a piece of cloth back then in the 70s. You know, I think Jack Sparrow had one in the 1870s, and why the hell didn't anybody have it in the 1970s? Go figure. But look, I started to wear a dastard or a turban at the age of 10. And the main driver for me was to actually get rid of the top knot, because I just wanted that covered up, because I thought it was a bit crazy. The dastard, the turban, was brilliant at doing that. The only downside is it was my mum picked all my turbans, and back then it was the 70s, and so they were all paisley or flowery. So if I look at the photos now, they are pretty sick making. But, you know, I went from actually having what was a ball on my head to actually having a load of flowers on my head. So I looked like a kind of pseudo Carmen Miranda without the fruit. You know, it looked so realistic in the flowers. Bees would actually try to pollinate on your head, which wasn't great. And if you stood outside an open window, you'd bet somebody was going to actually water your head thinking it was a hanging basket. So, you know what? I had all those as bugger and stuff, so I went through all of that sort of stuff. So listen, you know, and that's just the fun part of it, but I would never have changed. I love my dastard, I love my identity. I do tend to wear a black dastard these days, which seems to away from the paisley and the flowery. But listen, my friend, you know, I'm delighted you found Sikhi late, but please, 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 you know, one of the key things of Sikhi is not to be judgmental like that. So don't judge somebody else without knowing their story and where they're about. Yeah, because as far as I'm concerned, my Sikhi isn't perfect. The day I think it is perfect is the day, you know what, I think I stop being a good Sikh, because a Sikh is always learning. And that's what we should do. Learn, be tolerant, and just be aware of everybody else out there. But listen, I wish you all the best, no malice, having a bit of a laugh, having a bit of banter. Do keep watching the show though, because remember, after all, this is Banter, and let banter commence. Wagyu Culture, Wagyu Fate. Hi, welcome to Late Night Banter with me, Del Singh. Thank you for joining me today. I'm actually at the home of the real EastEnders. It's actually not that EastEnders, not the ones where you get chucked out of a pub and people speak roughly to you. It's actually East End Foods Limited, the emporium of good food. Well, good Indian food and lots of other types as well. Hopefully I'm going to get a chance to get some of their carrot pickle later on, but keep that quiet. My guest today is actually none other than Dr. Jason Wouhra, OBE. And Jason here is Director at East End Foods, plus he's also the chair of the Institute of Directors for the West Midlands. So, Jason, hi, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you, firstly, very much for finding some time, because you've got a hell of a day. You guy starts at 7 in the morning, doesn't go home till about 7 or 8 o'clock. I mean, talk about running your own business is tough. It's tough. So there's no part-time work going on here by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Good. Now, Jason, interestingly enough, I'm going to sort of switch some questions, because I just realised you just told me this, so we're going to do this on camera.
Okay.
You're named after one of my heroes. So, Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
So, go on then. What's the story about you being named after Jason the Argonauts?
Well, my Punjabi name is Jaswinder.
Okay.
And my Nana and my eldest uncle didn't quite like the name.
Okay.
My dad's name is Jasbir.
Absolutely.
So they said, well, this Jason and the Argonauts is very famous at the moment.
Perfect.
And also Jas's son, Jason, so it kind of stuck.
Jason, son of Jas, and Jason the Argonauts, a hero. Yeah. So, hey, can't be good. Although they probably didn't realise that much later on somebody's going to make a film, Friday the 13th, where the villain of the piece is a guy called Jason, who's a bit of a psycho. So
well,
you don't look like a psycho to me. Well, not at the moment. By the time you finish the interview, you'll probably be crazy. So, Jason, the Wouhra family has got a rich history here in the West Midlands. You guys, the family arrived from India back in the 60s, set up a business in Wolverhampton, I believe, initially a shop.
Yeah.
Before they obviously moved into the cash and carry in the wholesale trade and so on. So do you actually have recollections of the shop at all in Wolverhampton, or was that before your time?
Well, we moved from Wolverhampton to Birmingham. We moved the business in the kind of mid to late 70s. So
okay.
I think I was about one when we moved to Birmingham.
Okay.
I have been back, obviously, to there, and I've seen the little wholesale depot that we used to have.
You no longer retain that? That's somebody else got?
No, that's someone else's now.
Okay.
And then we moved to an area of Birmingham called Highgate, which is just outside Digbeth.
Okay.
Which we had that premises till about 6 months ago.
Okay. And the East End name, I mean, obviously a lot of people know of EastEnders, but a lot of people know of East End too, because your logo is pretty much synonymous with this huge amount of food on supermarket shelves and stuff. You'll see it, and that's where it comes from. But, I mean, there's no magnificent story about people thinking about East End. I believe it was going to be called Eastern Foods.
Yeah, we wanted to call it Eastern Foods. We learnt that the name, the company of that name had gone bankrupt recently, so we kind of called it East End. Decided we don't want to call it Eastern anymore.
Eastern. So it wasn't just a typo. They couldn't. It's nobody dyslexic filled the form in wrong, but it was obviously you didn't want to be.
Well, that may be the other side of the story, but I don't know.
That's what they told you. Hey? So there you go. So and obviously. You, as you said, you were kind of young when the business was sort of moving up and so on, and you grew up in the West Midlands as Sikh. What are your kind of recollections? What do you kind of do you enjoy about that, and maybe what wasn't so good about growing up as a Sikh in the West Midlands?
Well, I think that it was a tough time.
Right.
It was down to more that people weren't maybe so educated about diversity and the various communities that live in the city and likewise in the UK. So we all, as young Asian kids growing up, did face some degree of discrimination. I was possibly a little bit lucky in that majority of my school life, it was a majority Asian classroom. So we were quite lucky. I was quite lucky in that respect.
So you'd got a mixed school already that you were in, because this would have been probably the 1980s, I guess.
Yeah, all the way through the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. So unlike myself, I'm going to school in the 60s, where obviously it was spot the brown face, and it was actually only three of us. There was myself and my two brothers, and that was it. So you were quite fortunate there, but so that worked quite well.
And Birmingham's always been like that. Birmingham has been quite a kind of mosaic of cultures, and that's what makes the city so good.
And that brings me on to my next question then. So, over this last sort of 40 years and so on, what have been the big changes you've seen, in respect of Birmingham and the West Midlands? From what's your viewpoint? What's been the big drivers and change?
Well, if I think back to when I was, say, 14, 15 years old, looking over the city and looking at the skyline of the city, it was a very grey, industrial, quite smoggy type of city. That has changed over the years. That's improved. The cultural aspects of the city have really come to the forefront. I'm a big foodie, so
Okay.
big food fan. Different types
Can
of
I
food.
recommend East End foods? They're really good. No, anyway, go on. Go on.
And the availability of all the different foods, Indian,
Sure.
Chinese, whatever, is amazing.
Yeah.
Culturally, it's wonderful, and the city's really moved on. If you go around the city today, it's quite different from what it was, 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, although I was born in Peterborough, I've actually visited Birmingham on many occasions as a child and so on, and growing up. And I think your summation of it was there were quite large areas that were kind of derelict and run down because they weren't so great. But if you look at the regeneration here, I mean, I stayed around the Jewellery Quarter yesterday, ran down by the canal, and some amazing places down there. And as you say, a great diversity of entertainment, food, leisure. So Birmingham really, years ago, I suppose people would always sort of not quite see it as a second city, but it really has kind of gone up.
About. And some of the plans that are coming forward now, you've got the Commonwealth Games in 2022, we've got Coventry City of Culture, I think it's in 2020 onwards. So those kind of elements really do bring a lot of investment. Into the city and a lot of visitors, more importantly, So the number of cranes, you can see the Birmingham skyline from my office.
Yeah, we can.
There's a number of cranes. There's we've seen a big change in the place.
There is. There's some amazing. I mean, again, hotels and stuff, and like you say, they're accommodating an influx of people coming from outside. So that's brilliant. So just going back to yourself, in terms of your own personal development and career. Your parents did they push you in a particular direction when it came to educational career, or did you make your own way? And I believe somewhere I read you didn't really want to get involved in the family business. Is that a case or not?
Yeah, I was always involved from a young age, as most Asian families will appreciate. I was always involved in the business, weekends, school holidays.
Yeah, but that was because we had to.
We had to.
You had to. It wasn't. It was mandatory.
But the funny thing is that kind of thing gets into your bloodstream.
It does,
right?
Yeah.
So once you've been told at 6 o'clock in the morning by your dad, come on, get up, we're going to the warehouse, and you drag yourself out of bed and
they'd already drag the duvet off you, throw it away, and say, right, get up now.
Yeah, that's it. It brings a certain discipline, and eventually you start to like that working life and so on.
Yeah.
So I was always involved in the business, but in the back of my mind, I really wanted to be a barrister.
Okay.
A commercial barrister. So I did law in university.
Okay.
The LLB, and then went on. After I started working, I joined the business, and Dad said, "Look, we need help. Come in, and then think about what you want to do going forward."
So, but in one part of you had this aspiration of going into law. The other part of you was obviously torn with family, and we know when we come from a strong Indian Sikh background, family is often first, and everything else goes on hold. So was there kind of this moment that you had to think, okay, this way, that way, and then you chose this way? Was it as clear cut as that, or?
Well, I kept studying. I was studying part time.
Okay.
So I did my LLM in commercial law.
Okay.
So I was working while I did that. So I'd work in the day and then study it in the evenings, and I got my admission into the BBC course, the bar vocational course, and then got a place in Lincoln's Inn, which is one of the Inns of Court, obviously. But then got to that kind of 11th hour.
Right.
Didn't quite have the guts to tell Dad all about the journey that I'd taken.
Right.
And then we decided that no, we stay with the business, and the company's growing, and I can't say that looking back that's been a bad decision.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier on your father, Jaspeed, or Jas, I think people refer to him as, and we'll talk a little bit about him. But I think also there's got to be some mention here of the brothers, because there's 5 brothers, isn't it? So as well as your dad, there's, get this right, the Lork, Tony Deep, David and Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could actually have made a pop group with those names. They really could have.
They almost did, believe me.
They did. Well, your dad's pretty much a good singer, so it's like the Wouhra 5,
yeah,
like the Jackson 5.
Doesn't have the same ring to it,
Doesn't really, doesn't. But you know what? Another time, another place. Parallel universe is probably a group there, and there's probably the Jacksons are running a cash and carry somewhere. But so they've obviously been very successful in business and so on, and particularly the food business. You know, has it really been down to the fact that you're in Birmingham, or has it just been that in the right place at the right time with a population mix that's taken on board the food, or has it been the fact that you've brought more innovative ideas around eating and stuff to people?
It's a bit of everything. I mean, first and foremost, to make a business last for this amount of time, we're touching near enough 50 years now.
Wow. Okay.
2 generations, third generation coming in, and to make something last that level of time, you've got to work together. So all of the family have different skill sets. They all contribute and are complementary to one another.
Yeah.
So that's the first and foremost. If we look at the kind of economic and food-related fashions outside of that, in the 60s, the English people didn't want to touch curry. They couldn't stand the smell of it.
Yeah, quite.
Now that is completely changed, completely flipped, as we all know. Now I think I've heard figures mention that £800 a minute is spent on Indian food in the UK.
That's just in my house,
right?
But yeah. Sorry, you should see me beforehand.
8.5 million English consumers
Yeah.
produce a curry from scratch once a week.
That's pretty impressive, isn't
So that's quite a big market, and
Yeah.
so that we've been lucky in a way that we've been part of that journey.
Yeah, it has been an evolution because, I mean, it's interesting you say that. I mean, obviously my father was kind of in that food business, but in a retail sense. And in Peterborough, which, let's face it, wasn't quite Birmingham, so we had one Indian restaurant. And I remember going to this restaurant with my dad in terms of supplying stuff, so around the back of the kitchens and sacks of rice and a few bits and so on. And the chef there was kind of like, made this curry, and I was hungry. I mean, so he was like, have a bit of this and whatever. Had raisins in it.
Yeah.
Had raisins in it. I was like, I wanted a meal, not a dessert.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was bizarre, but he said, this is what the Gordio eat. This is what white people eat, English people eat. And, back in the 70s, it was like a Vesta meal was what the expectation of a curry was.
Yeah.
And obviously, things have now evolved to the point where people are, as you say, being more adventurous. They're cooking with the right ingredients and not raisins and apples, by the way. It's not coronation chicken. If you want that, then get a sandwich.
Yeah.
But so I suppose that evolution has been part and parcel of your success. That you've been with the right products and getting people as their frame of mind has changed.
You have to be true to your values, right?
Yeah.
So if we look, I mean, I was in South America earlier this year.
Okay.
And in the 2 and a bit weeks that I was there, I didn't see one Indian face. Right?
You didn't look in a mirror then?
Well, I looked in a mirror, yeah, obviously, but I didn't see one Indian face apart from me and my wife.
Yeah.
And but I had 3 Indian meals.
Yeah.
In 3 different Indian restaurants.
Yeah.
Which was surprising because when you walk in, there were all the South American people making the food.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Not pretty good. It was above pretty good. So there is something about Indian food that's a little bit addictive,
Well, there is.
like.
There is. I mean, I must admit, I too had a similar experience in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, where, in fact, I would think I must have been the only guy wearing a turban in probably the whole of Brazil.
Yeah.
Because people would look at me, and this is obviously many, many years ago, before 9/11 and stuff and so on. But in fact, I ended up at an Irish bar because it was like, if it's either Indian food or Irish bars for drinks.
Yeah.
That's where you end up because it's a bit of home and so on.
That's right.
Now East End, obviously, there's if people go to their supermarkets, they'll see a plethora of foods, colourful labels and jars and stuff, including carrot pickle, which is my favourite, and I'm tapping this guy out for some later on. So there's obviously a long process before that stuff hits the shelves of sourcing produce, manufacture, producing, and so on. Have you seen that happening? Have you been involved in that, or is it how difficult is that as a process? Because I think a lot of us just see the end product and we think these guys just sell this stuff, but you manufacture and then bring it to a shelf.
Well, to produce the quality of product, I mean, we are sourcing from all over the world.
Okay.
So it doesn't just come from India; it comes from pretty much every country around the world. There are 1,300 lines that we produce,
Right.
and what we do is we import and we process.
Right.
So we grind, we blend spices, we mill rice, we polish lentils. So you remember in the old days, you used to see Mum sorting the dal by
dal
hand,
out.
right?
Yep.
Now you don't have that because all the machinery has done the hard work for us.
better not tell my wife about that because she still does it. You can buy clean dal.
You're buying the
now.
wrong dal then.
You're
right?
buying the wrong dal, dear. Yeah.
The investment in that facility is something in the region of 20 million quid to get that machinery, to get the quality of the product, so that when you open the product as a consumer, you're getting the same standard that you expect every time.
For 20 million quid, you could have just got a load of people sitting there chugging dal and stuff. It would save you I could have saved you 19 million pounds.
Not quite the same. Not quite the same.
That's the Indian thing. I could do it cheaper and better. But
even if you look at spices, we clean spices before we grind them.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
But
But you do it because your values, the values of your business, the values are linked into the values of the family, which is, we're not going to sell anything that we wouldn't consume ourselves.
Yeah, and as you're saying, the bar is set higher now with expectation with people, that are eating the food now. They expect stuff. Nobody wants to get a stone or something in their dal and chip a tooth on it because that's going to cause them problems and stuff. So it was all about reputation. Just going back to the Indian connection and so on. So my take on India. I'm sure you go to India still. Do you?
Yes, yeah.
You do. My take on India is often a very poor infrastructure and stuff. So how is it trying to do things like source materials, supply chain, transportation, all those things that I find dreadful? How do you overcome some of those things?
These things are built over the years. So we deal with people that we've dealt with for years that are trusted suppliers. We will not go to any other outside of our normal base. So the people we deal with, we know they'll give us a quality product time in, time out.
So, and you mentioned, circa 1,300 lines, individual product lines. So, East End are, probably the largest ethnic food importer and distributor in the UK here. And you've got not just in supermarkets in the UK, but across Europe right now. Yeah. So what?
And further.
And further. So I was going to say, and further.
So we have been known to sell spices back to India as well.
Talk about coals to Newcastle. Yeah, dal to Delhi. So what about things like markets like the States and so on? Is that an area where you see an evolution, progression, where you think you're going to be going to or moving to in terms of trying to sell more?
We do bits and bobs there. We supply a lot to the Middle East.
Okay.
Dubai and so on.
Okay.
Europe, there's quite a number of. We've got a small distribution centre in Italy.
Okay.
Canada, bits and bobs in America.
Okay.
But these things are all, from small acorns. You've got to kind of build it up slowly but surely.
Just be mindful of the fact Donald Trump wants to impose taxes on people sending stuff over there, so you maybe get hit by the spice tax. So
that's always
the spice tariff.
To a degree, that's always been the American policy, to be fair.
Right.
So you work your way around it.
You get around the spice tariff, yeah. Send him some carrot pickle, it's great. Yeah.
I doubt that he'd, unless he puts it in his hair.
Well, I was just about to say, go with his complexion. He could do that. You wouldn't be able to, here's a jar of carrot pickle, here's Donald Trump's face.
He looks like a godger anyway, doesn't he?
He does. A bit of a moolie, actually, but there you go. So now, in terms of outside of your role at East End here, you're also with the Institute of Directors, and I believe you became the youngest member of the West Midlands IOD.
Youngest chairman of the IOD globally.
Okay.
In 115 years.
Wow, that's quite something.
And I was also they do a qualification called Chartered Director, and I was the youngest ever with that.
So for those other folks watching and thinking, go on, in the IOD, that sounds like a serious complaint. See a doctor. What do you do at the IOD, the Institute of Directors? What's your role? What does it involve?
So the IOD is an organisation that promotes professionalism in business.
Okay.
As directors, we are under a big legal responsibility, more so than in management. You carry the can. The buck stops with you.
Okay.
So it's understanding those responsibilities and training directors to the right global standards.
Okay.
It's promoting the right governance, promoting the right standards for business to be able to grow business and do business worldwide.
Okay, that's good.
It's quite a big organisation.
I was just about to say, it is a large organisation. Does that take up a lot of your time then, outside of business?
A fair amount of time. I mean, it's kind of on and off. There'll be some weeks that you're very busy and others that you're not. But what it has done for me is it's got me connectivity with people of importance and in the business world. I've done things like advising David Cameron's government on business policies and stuff with a group from the IOD. And over the years, got into very interesting things as a result.
That's pretty impressive.
Very worthy organisation.
Good. And in terms of the family, obviously, you guys are a major employer in this region, the West Midlands, and I believe, you're a Midlands lad. I can still say that because I'm a lot older than you are. But at heart, you're quite passionate about this region, about employment, about the well-being, and so you're kind of passionate about that. You also, I think, I've got some strong views about things like the government doing more. You mentioned David Cameron's government, but obviously other governments doing more in terms of not just putting the money into London and the south, but putting it into and I heard a term that you've used, a Midlands powerhouse. What would you like the Midlands powerhouse to be?
Well, we've been hearing for years on end that the government will devolve powers to the Midlands, give more money for investment, give us the opportunity to decide how to invest that money in the region. Because at the end of the day, if you want to improve your home, you're going to improve your home knowing what you need. Somebody from 500 miles away isn't going to come and give you the right advice. So it's that in very basic terms.
Yeah.
But we're very lucky now. We've got a great mayor who's taken the role last year, Andy Street, who's the ex-MD of John Lewis Partnership. He's doing a great job. He's done things like get the Commonwealth Games here for 2022. He's managed to pull that through the line. Coventry, City of Culture. So all these things are starting to build up the hype in the city, and there's other things going on. There's a lot of. I'm very much involved with universities.
Okay.
I'm a director I'm a chairman at Aston University.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that in a moment.
So there's lots of stuff going on.
Is there? I mean, things like is there better transport links and stuff needed, or do you think those are already in place, or do you think they can be improved on?
Transport is directly linked in to the success of the region.
Right.
So without the right transport links,
right.
For example, if we take just the working world, if you haven't got the right road network or rail network or bus network to be able to get people to work, then the employer struggles, the employee struggles.
Yeah, and of course supply chain products and so on.
Supply chain and so on as well. So that's a massive element of, just outside Birmingham, we've got the M6 leading up to Wolverhampton, up to Junction 10.
Which is always blocked.
It's always blocked.
It's always blocked.
Always blocked.
Actually,
like a car park.
I've got to say this on here. Is there ever a time when that sign that says M6 toll clear changes? The M6 toll's always clear. We don't need a sign.
It is. No one wants to use it.
We don't, exactly. Yeah. We don't need a sign.
And even that, funnily enough, it's funny you mention that, even that now is being looked at.
Right.
How do we get people on the M6 toll? Yeah. How do we make things like the Jaguar factory coming here, with Tata taking over. Yeah. There was a person in industry, Lord Kumar Bhattacharya, who bought Ratan Tata to Birmingham and got him to buy Jaguar Land Rover. Now, the story since then has been just success.
Right.
Very, very successful. I was involved with the Black Country Local Enterprise Partnership. I was the vice chair of Black Country Local Enterprise Partnership when they decided to put a factory in Wolverhampton, which it was a £550 million investment from Tata, and it created 1,700 jobs.
Wow, that's great.
So there's lots going on.
Yeah, so that's the prosperity of the region moving forward. So what about, you guys mentioned that you're obviously not just in the UK, you're in Europe and so on. And so, what are your thoughts on Brexit and life after Brexit and so on? How do you see it affecting you guys?
This is the question that's been asked so many times in the last couple of years. In the last couple of years, I don't think there's one conversation that you don't talk about Brexit nowadays. The reality is that whatever deal, when we negotiate, and I think Indians are very good at negotiation.
Right.
So the negotiation is always done with certain cards held back on each side, so that you pull those cards out when you need to pull those cards out. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be enough movement. Things have got a little bit better in recent months. it's a very tough one. You know, it's a divorce, almost a divorce settlement.
It's a divorce
isn't it,
settlement.
right?
Nobody wants to give.
You know, no one wants to give, but they can't afford not to give.
Yeah.
So we will come out of it, I think. And I'm a Remainer originally.
Yep. Okay.
I was a staunch Remainer, but we will come out of it with as good a position as we possibly can. But that being said, I think it will knock us back for a few years.
Yeah, I think I mean, a lot of them. I know I work in the IT industry, and I know a lot of companies are actually holding back on IT expenditure based on the fact there's uncertainty.
100%. All industries. All industries.
Whereas if I cross the water to Ireland, they're kind of much more open to have that conversation because it's not something that worries them. But
so it will hold us back. And even if you look at, I'm director at QE Hospital. It's Europe's biggest hospital, and you know, there are effects on even the NHS.
Yeah.
You know, you've got skills shortage, labour shortage. It's these are all important factors to a thriving and growing economy.
Quite. I like your point about Indians are good negotiators. So Teresa, if you're listening there, get a couple of Indians in there, to negotiate. It would be a solid Brexit. Forget the hard one. Yeah. Now you mentioned your connection to Aston University. They gave you a doctorate, so you are a doctor, and you're chairman of the university's development board. So. Again, obviously, in more recent years, there's been a decline in numbers of students. Obviously, some of it's down to student loans and the debt that people incur doing that. You know, your involvement with the university, are you seeing a downturn in things like foreign students and money coming in as well?
The foreign students bit's a worrying factor because what the government had done is because of the European immigration issue and the fact that they couldn't stop that side of things. They stopped the Indian and Chinese students coming into the UK, or made it very difficult for them, at the least. Now, as a result, the universities all over the UK, they were making money on the fees, which was 3-4 times what British students were what they were able to make from British students. So the revenues had reduced, and thus giving the universities a very difficult period. I think. Hopefully that situation will change or is changing. And so the foreign students is important. Now, there's another strand to that. Foreign students, when they're here, in general, they will be from relatively affluent families, business families back in India. They come in, they're educated people. They know the world very well. And they spend here. They enjoy the lifestyle here. Get their education, go back home, and then they've got a direct affinity with the UK to trade in the future. So it's not just a one-hit benefit. There's actually a lifetime of benefits to having Indian or Chinese or foreign students in general.
Which is interesting you say that, because I mean I know some folks from India who actually said, well, you know what, we actually our lad's going to Australia to study now. We did think about the UK,
absolutely,
but you know they're trying to get in here. It's too nuts. We're under scrutiny, suspicion. So you know what, these are the options. Australians saying we'll take them as students, and they'll probably benefit their economy. So
and there may be some people that want to stay. What's wrong with that? You know,
no,
our society, our community has only contributed to this nation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You look across the board. Be it in business, be it in healthcare, any field you look at. You know, there's some very, very high-ranking Asian faces around.
I'm sold on that. It's the UKIP and those guys that you've got to convince.
That's a small.
Anyway, so you've also, I mean, you know, it's not like your day's not long enough already because you work from 7 till 7. Then you're on the IOD. Then you do at Aston University. You're also involved with the Child Poverty Development Commission there. So in terms of trying to combat child poverty, which is obviously something that some people don't understand. It goes under the radar. So what's your role there, and what are the initiatives that you guys are putting in place to combat that?
I chair the board at the moment. The worrying stat is that 47% of kids in inner city Birmingham live in poverty.
That's frightening in this day and age.
In this day and age, we're the 5th largest economy. We're a developed nation, yet there's 47% of the kids in our cities.
And how does that manifest itself? Is that a lack of food or a
lack of food, missing meals?
Right.
General disadvantage, you know. And it has to be turned around. It has to be turned around. you can't simply cut everything.
Yeah.
You know?
And is that linked largely to austerity and what's happened in the last few years? And do you think we should be, you know?
I think maybe it's linked to austerity and also social mobility and so on. You know, getting the right chances in life, people being eager to do better, the opportunities, job opportunities.
Yeah.
In some cases, maybe a fear factor to get out there and you know, find the right opportunities. You know.
Okay. So on. Are there some initiatives in place right now? Are there things that you guys are working
So
on?
there was a commission report written, which was submitted to Birmingham City Council at Birmingham City Council's request. And my role in the organisation is to actually ensure that the recommendations of that report are put through and adhered to.
Actioned, yeah.
Action.
Okay, yeah. That's good. Now, you recently, and for everything you're doing, it seems like sort of common sense, were awarded an OBE by His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, and I believe on the day in Buckingham Palace you actually met my nephew, Amajit, who got the Queen's Police Medal. Yeah. So Amajit, shout out to you. So it's great to have a few Sikhs in the palace.
There were three of us there.
There were three seats in the palace. It's remarkable. That's good stuff. Yeah. And I believe Prince Charles actually recognised you as the Spice Man. That's his nickname for you. So that was quite something. So, you know, how did you feel getting the award?
I don't think you can feel anything but humility, pride, a total surprise, because you don't know about these things. You don't know who's put your name in. You don't know what the process is. You just get a letter, and they tell you to keep quiet for about a month or so until it's officially announced. So I got the letter back in May 2017. I had to keep it quiet till, even from my own family, till June 16th at 10:30 p.m.
You could tell.
I wasn't allowed to say anything. And then, you know, it's amazing because it's not something you can apply for. It's not something that is instigated by you.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is watching and
that's great.
They're giving you that recognition. So
and he knows you as the Spice Man. Is that what he referred to you as?
Yeah, the story behind that, I mean, it's quite a funny story.
Cool,
I did I helped a few of his charities over the years.
Okay.
And we had the opportunity, I was lucky enough to meet him a couple of times. And the last time I met him, I went up to him and I said, "Oh, so we've met before." And he says, "Yes, I remember you. You're the Spice Man," obviously because of East End Foods. And I was just blown away. Yeah. And he even at this at the OBE investiture, he said, "Yes, we have met before." And I said, "So you've got a good memory?" And he said, "Yes, I have got a good memory, but I've got good advisors too."
Yeah. It could have been worse. You could have said, "Which of the Spice Girls are you?" That would have been. Well, Are you really frightening or scary?
Well, I think I might have run in the opposite direction. If that was the case.
Actually, with the Avengers movie out now and so on, I've just thought of it. You know, they are lacking an Indian superhero. You've got Black Panther, so why not Spice Man? Yeah. You could be Jason.
Chaat masala.
Spice Man. Like Masala Man. Yeah, exactly. When things heat up.
Yeah, exactly.
Things get gutted. So you've obviously, I mean, we've talked about your connections and so on in India. Now, I'm just going to go back to family. Your father I see him on Facebook all the time because he is a playback singer, Bollywood singer. He's a Bollywood genre singer. Actually, got a great voice. I mean, I'm not a massive admirer of Indian music because I don't know too much about it. But, you know, he certainly knows how to hold a tune. So how about yourself? Can you carry a tune?
Only in the shower.
Oh, come on. We were going to do
on my own in the shower.
Well, I was going to. Well, yeah, I'm going to say, it's a family show. We don't know what your shower habits, but what we'll do. I thought we were going to do karaoke here all of a sudden. It was going to be all right. Well, there you go.
Way. It was. Funnily enough, that gene missed me.
It did.
Dad's got it, and my younger brother Indy's got it as well.
Okay. He does the Frank Sinatra stuff, doesn't he?
He does the Frank Sinatra stuff. He's done a little bit of music on films and stuff as well.
Oh, okay. That's
Punjabi
great.
films and things like that.
That's great. Well, you know, because James Corden does carpool karaoke. I thought we were going to do cash and carry karaoke, but that idea
no go today.
That idea's just gone. There you go. So that's it. So Jason, you know, not that you get a lot of time once you get home and stuff, but what do you do to kind of, you know, on your days off or switch off? What do you do to kind of relax, to chill?
I mean, some of the voluntary stuff that I do, I in a weird kind of way is like a hobby. I enjoy it very much. I enjoy learning from people, meeting new people. But my passion, I suppose, outside of that is is cooking. I
Okay.
love cooking. Any type of cooking. I do Indian, English, and Italian, whatever.
Isn't just the excuse for you to take home the stuff that's out of date and cook at home, is it? That's not. That's a kind of Indian thing. My dad used to do it. Sorry, I've got to say this. I love my late father, but he'd do this. We're eating this tonight. Why is it? Because he realises it's stuff that just gone out of date.
Don't
so
want to waste
take it home and
it.
cook it. A brilliant idea not to waste it. But
We've all got a bit of that in us. You can't lose that.
so
You can't lose that.
so guys. You're eating this stuff tonight. Oh, what is it? It's just, I don't know, it's the stuff that the label's missing. I don't know. We're going to...
Just eat it.
Just eat it. So go on, what's your signature dish? What are you good at? What do you kind of excel at?
I normally, Sunday morning, I do a full, breakfast and masala omelette, masala beans and all that business.
Anything with masala.
Anything with masala.
Basically, what you
Anything
take
with
is
masala,
every
yeah.
English dish and just put masala
Just put
on
masala
it.
on top, that's
It's
it.
French, it's French masala toast.
Yeah. Made a living out of it, for God's sake, man.
Yeah, you can't argue with that, can you? Yeah, the masala works.
The more
Do it.
masala, the better for us.
Yeah, exactly. So that's your thing. So just talking about things like music. I know you've got a very musical family in terms of singing and stuff, and maybe whilst you can't carry a tune, maybe a bag of masala. But can you actually, do you like music, and what sort of music do you enjoy listening to then, if not singing?
I suppose if anything, it's more English music.
Okay, good. I'm a good fan.
Quite eclectic.
Okay.
Can be anything from U2, George Michael. I like R&B. I'm not into the heavy rap or anything like that. But,
No, you didn't strike me as
I had my
gangster.
days.
You didn't strike me as
I had my days, I suppose. But yeah, mostly kind of like pop and R&B type of music.
No, that's pretty good.
But I like occasionally some of the kind of little bit different, rock type of music or
Nothing wrong
U2.
with a bit of rock.
Some of the classics,
So, have you been to many gigs and stuff at all, or do you get out to sort of?
I try and go to as many as I can.
Because you've got the LG Arena just up the road from you. I mean, I was up there not that long ago. Last time I was there, actually, was Metallica. Actually,
Yeah.
so there you go. I'm a bit more rocky.
Well, so one of the things a few years ago I started doing was I've got myself a membership to the LG Arena. So we just pre-book, me and my wife pre-book the concerts, and it gives you a chance to kind of get away and change a scene and so on. So it's pretty good. We've been to some really cool concerts.
Go on, tell me what would be the best gig you've kind of been to, or a gig that
so
stood
many.
out.
It's Justin Timberlake was good.
Oh, okay.
But my best friend is about 10, 12 years older than me, and we went to the Eagles, and I never really even been into the Eagles at all.
They played at the ICC in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I actually came and saw them here, so maybe you might have been in the audience there as well. So there you go. So I guess, can you actually remember buying music, your first bit of music you bought? What might that have been?
It would have been something along the lines of Duran Duran or George Michael, that kind
Duran,
of stuff.
You can just see it was just Tartan Bug on.
There was Aha as well in those days.
Take on Me, yeah.
This is total mix of stuff.
This is retro. It's good.
Mix of
It's
stuff.
good. It's good. It's all good stuff. Now, what about movies and stuff? You're a fan of the movies. Do you tend to watch much in the way of cinema? And
as much as I can.
Is it Hollywood or Bollywood or?
I haven't seen a good Bollywood film in a very, very long time, but
That's because they haven't made one.
they haven't made one.
I'm going to get laughed at for that, I'll tell you, but there you go.
Normally, right, let me think, what's a good film that I've seen? I like James Bond. Anything James Bond is
You're
good.
gonna have to,
It's the same story repeated over and over
You're
again.
going to love my
but
James Bond story, I'll tell you afterwards and so on. I've got a James Bond connection, which is famous James Bond connection. So you're kind of into the action movie type thing and so on.
You're not related to Kabir Bedi, are you?
Well, listen, I'm not related to him, but I tied the bug on his head for the film Octopussy.
Really?
That was me, and I've got the photos to prove it. So
That is amazing.
I had a Skype reunion with him last year after 35 years. I spoke to him after 35 years. I'll talk to you off camera about that.
The guy's a legend.
He's a legend, isn't he? Yeah. That's it. Now, and do you get a chance to watch much TV and stuff, or not? Do you sort of
bits and bobs normally on the weekend when
any things that stand
me and
out?
my wife are at home.
Any things that stand out that you watch? EastEnders.
No, don't actually. You know why I don't watch EastEnders?
Go on, why don't you?
Right, there
Reminds you of work, the logo.
There was a phase that I got into it, but any time you put EastEnders on, they're either beating each other up, arguing, or crying.
That's life. That's what people
You
love
want to
it.
move away from that. You don't want to watch it when you go home.
Well, the reason I watch this with my wife, and the reason I watch it because it makes my life so much better. I'm in such a great place because I'm not miserable.
That's a way of looking. And we've actually had our products on EastEnders.
Have you now?
Yeah.
East End on EastEnders.
East End on EastEnders.
EastEnders, remarkable.
Quite a few times.
Yeah, none of us can live without tech these days. Is there an app on your phone that you can't live without?
No, I try and avoid as much as I can.
You can.
Unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
And that's a bit of a traditional view, but
fair
I try and do without it if I can.
Fair point. So, and again, in the future, as a legacy, I don't wish you any harm or ill, but what would you like people to say about Jason in many years to come? Jason was...
It's very difficult to say, but I think the main thing for me is that you've got to be here and contribute something. And that's not about business, it's not about money. That comes and goes.
Yep.
But I think your values should stand up at the test of time. And you should be remembered as somebody who did good for society to the best of his or her ability. So if anything, it's that. Integrity, values, and
perfect.
Doing good for people.
Perfect. I think that's a very admirable sentiment, and we'd all like to strive to do that. So as we kind of begin to wrap, just a couple of things. I mean, I've got a little thing. We've already talked about food. So while we're in a place of food, a temple of food. So we talk about dinner party where you've done the cooking because you're not going to get anybody else to do it. You just got dishes with everything with masala in them.
Masala, yeah.
And you've now got to invite 3 people, dead or alive, that you would love to break bread with. Who would they be? I'm going to say please exclude family for now because I just want to know who maybe some heroes, mentors might be, and why would you invite them?
Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
Does it have to be 3 people?
It can be 3. If you're really unpopular, invite 1 and just hog the night. So Nelson Mandela.
Nelson
obviously,
Mandela would be down to, and I would say, some of the Indian names like Shahid Bhagat Singh and Gandhi, but I think Nelson Mandela for more modern history, and facing the same kind of issues would be very, very interesting. One of the interesting guys that I have met over the years is Terry Waite.
Okay.
Which isn't a name you hear that much
Not
anymore.
these days, and he's obviously quite old now. And for the viewers that don't know Terry Waite, he's obviously a religious figure. He was held hostage in Lebanon, I believe, for a number of years, and he came out of it in remarkable fortitude. Again, a man of faith, belief, and integrity. So,
and his story is amazing, and he's the only person I've ever met in my life that I've been lost for words.
Wow. Okay.
Really been in awe of the character.
All right.
And then probably someone like maybe George Michael because of the,
You know what? That's a really good shout. I nothing wrong with that. I thought
it's a bit of an odd mix of people.
No, it's not. It's your mix, and it's quite interesting because I think it's sad that he's obviously died very young, and he had a lot of pressure on him and all the rest of it. But again, he left behind a fabulous legacy of music. I must admit, I listened to his Symphonia album the other day in the car, and I was just thinking, a great voice, great lyrics, a great loss.
Died too young.
Yeah, far too young.
And then doing the Pandey, I'd have.
Who would do the Pandey? Who'd clear the masala mess?
Trump and Putin, I think.
Trump and Putin.
Yeah, together. There'll be a lot of dishes, yeah?
There'd be a lot of dishes, there'd be a lot of dishes to do and so on. But, you just got to, the trouble is, inviting Putin to a dinner party, you just got to watch out, there's no nerve agents there left in you. So that's it. And so the last part that we've got now, Jason, as we wrap, we've got a couple of minutes, is the fishbowl. Now, this is questions that have been randomly put together, probably by my offspring and anybody else that was interested in contributing. So I'll ask you to pick some of these out, read it out,
Do I read it out?
Answer it with total impunity and honesty, which you will, no doubt.
Okay. A band or artist you would have loved to see or have seen live in concert?
Well, you talked about a few, but is there one that you would have liked to have seen that you never got to see?
One I haven't seen, which I'd really like to see, is Coldplay.
Okay.
And I don't quite know why I haven't seen them, but
I'm surprised, actually,
I'd love to see them.
It's an interesting story.
And U2, that's the other one.
Yeah. Well, I actually saw U2 playing a pub as a support act.
Wow.
But I'm a lot older than you, so that's probably why. They're actually very good. The headline band weren't, but
Another one.
yeah, you're going to pick a couple of these out, so we'll go for a few of these. So we've got a couple of minutes here.
You could be the lead in any movie. What would that movie be? Terminator.
Jason Bourne.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Jason Bourne.
Oh, that film gets on my nerves.
I was just going to say.
You know why it gets on my
Go on,
nerves?
why didn't it get any nerves?
Because there was a stage, every time you put the telly on, Jason Bourne was on TV.
You've got to stop watching those repeats then. You were watching those repeats.
You have a free plane ticket to anywhere in the world. Where would you go and why? Well, having been to South America recently, I quite like South America.
Yeah. Well, so was it Brazil or Argentina or whereabouts? Or
Chile, Brazil. We had New Year's Eve in Rio.
Pretty good.
Which I'd love to do again.
Pretty good.
And then Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires. Brilliant.
Great place. Another one.
Yeah, I'm going to let you do 5 of these. So you've got 2 more to go, and then we'll call it a day.
If you could teach a college course on any subject you want, what would it be? I'm not going to be very creative on this.
No, go on.
It's something business related.
I thought it might be, actually.
I've done a bit of that in the past, but it's
I thought
quite
it might.
interesting.
Well, I thought it might have been how to cook with masala. Masala for beginners.
It could do that.
It could do that.
Do you play a musical instrument? If no, what would you have learned? The drums.
What?
I don't play the drums, but I would have learned.
You would have learned it. Now, are those the kind of Phil Collins drums, not the double R drums?
No.
So proper. I know you don't have much time, but you could probably still do that. You're not too old to do that.
I tried it on a drum kit and it didn't sound very good. So.
No, well, look, if a gorilla can do it on an advert to Phil Collins, then maybe you can do it. Listen, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure this afternoon. Thank you very much for giving up your time. Probably means you've got to stay here till 8 o'clock now, not 7. And your family are going to probably be hating me for this. So I'm sorry, it's my fault. He's getting home late tonight. But no, it has been absolutely brilliant.
Cheers,
really appreciate that. Do some great work. And obviously, who knows? Maybe I might see a Coldplay gig or another gig or something like that.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So anyway, all that remains for me is to thank Jason for his time this afternoon. Also thank you for watching. Trust you've enjoyed Late Night Banter with Del Singh. Don't forget you can actually catch all the episodes at www.latenightbanter.com. Until next week, when we have some more banter, thank you very much. Very good, Carl. Very good for it. And good night.